Hey! So welcome to Paint and Pour, y'all. Y'all aren't gonna see my face during this tutorial because it's overhead and I want to paint on a flat surface tonight, but what I want to make sure that y'all have with you is your watercolor palette, whether you're using tubed paint and mixing it in your own palette, whether you, like me, are obsessed with these cute little compact sets and are using a compact set. I want you to have your palette. I want you to have at least 2 brushes. I'm using a round 12 and a round 10. This is a Princeton and this is a Lowell Cornell. So, Cornell. It's Paint and Pour, so I have already had a little bit of wine, which is fun. And then I want you to have a jar or a jug or something like that and a paper towel, because we're definitely going to be moving from pigment to water to towel kind of here a lot. And then pencil and pen and 2 pieces of paper. So I have my Arches watercolor pad. Remember, this was my grandpa's. And it's funny, I was slicing off one of these papers tonight, and I vividly remember first ever seeing an X-Acto knife was in my grandfather's hand. He like whipped it out of his pocket and cut it like that. But I used a butter knife. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So again, I'm really happy that y'all are here with me, Haley from home. And I hope that you're all healthy and well, and I really miss you guys, and I miss seeing y'all in the flesh, but it's really good to have y'all connecting here. What I want you to do with your first piece of paper, this one's just going to be a practice paper, so you really don't need to do any drawing on this right now. Put this one to the side. With your second piece of paper, I want you to draw a quadrant section. So draw a line down the middle, and I'm actually going to do this with my pen. Actually, no, sorry, take it back. Do it with your pencil because you might want to erase this if you like what you've done tonight. And then try to eyeball it. Don't worry if it's not perfect. Remember, I just want to teach you how to get some fun pen and ink watercolor flowers down tonight. So you're going to learn, and then you can always go back to this video and try again with a little more time. What we're doing tonight are some of my favorite, they're called messy flowers. And these are really stress relieving. So I think that's been a really fun theme during this quarantine, and while we continue to find strength and healing, is this stress relief. And so I'm going to teach you how to do these, and those are represented here. And then I'm going to teach you what I call my summer flowers. I'm going to teach you my spring flowers, and then just some basic greens to add in and for fun and for the background, and I'll also include simple leaf shapes. So we're going to mark down our quadrants, and then I want you to come back to your first piece of paper. And I want to go over some basic watercolor techniques. If you haven't taken my Watercolor 101, we're going to grab our 2 brushes. Bring your water close. I'm also wearing a flower shirt tonight, but y'all will see that afterwards. And get your first brush really wet. Hold it there for a second. Take your pencil. Tonight we're going to go pencil first. Really, really light. I can't emphasize that enough, how you want to be light, because watercolor in nature is so transparent when you apply a lot of water that it's hard to erase. You can, 1, see the pencil, and 2, it's hard to erase pencil after you've already put pigment on top. So super light pencil for all of the techniques from here on out. And I want you just to draw a very simple petal shape. It's kind of like a thumb, all right? Draw a rather decent sized petal, pointing at the bottom, wide on the sides, and rounded at the top. If you need to do it again, you can. And I actually want you, and don't worry if they don't look the same. Darker. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, my sweet husband. Okay, so I'm going to draw darker, but y'all aren't allowed to draw darker. Y'all have to draw light, because I want you to notice what this looks like. Okay, so I have 2 petals. I actually want you to do 1, 2, 3, 4. I want you to do 4 different petals, just 4, really randomly anywhere. And y'all are gonna hear Jean-Pierre tonight because he's just really upset that he's not in this video. Okay, take your watercolor brush. Actually, excuse me, hold this for 1 second. Let's talk about a color choice for this first petal. So I have my pigment here, but I'm actually gonna go back to my big palette. If you want a pink, really it can be a red with a little purple, and really water it down. So that's kind of what I've done here. I've done a little red, a little purple, and I've really watered it down. And I'm just gonna get it wet again, because this was about an hour ago and it kind of dried up already. So I have my pigment of choice. All right. This is going to be my pigment brush. So this is what I'm going to use to pick up the paint and put on the petal. That was a lot of P's. This is going to be my water brush. Go to the first petal and wet the entire part of the petal on the inside. I want you to notice the movement of your brush. When we watercolor, we don't keep a stiff elbow and a stiff wrist. I'm flipping my brush back, I'm flipping it forward, I'm turning it to the side, and I'm holding my brush a little bit closer to the top, but I'm actually at the middle part of the brush, so I have just a little more control, especially when I'm watering. The way you can see if you're getting into your petal is by leaning into it and checking for the gloss. So what I love about watercolor too is that it's very motion forward, it's very motion heavy. You have to get active in this type of painting. It's quick, it's really quick. Okay, with that first petal, we're gonna do a very simple full color. So go back to your palette, pick up that color that you created, and I want you to color it in with watercolor. Do your best to stay in the lines. You're gonna come back to this for some of your leaves that you do tonight, excuse me. So you're just, notice how my hand moves with the brush. I'm not keeping anything stiff, and I'm just coloring in. So tonight when we do these flowers, especially for my summer flowers, this is an option. Full color in. Since this is a demo, if you want to try something fun, what happens if you drop a drop of water at the top? It starts to push the pigment away. So you can keep dropping and adding in some interesting techniques if you want to just kind of explore with pigment on paper. Now we're going to wet the second petal, and this is a fun technique. And if y'all saw my recent post about me getting awesome frames from a local frame shop here in the Heights, Dramatica, I have a painting with petals on it, and this is a fun technique that I used to create the idea of rose petals. So we're going to wet the entire petal. I want you to come back to your pigment, and I'm actually going to make mine a little bit darker so y'all can see. So I'm going to make it more red forward. And I want you to imagine that you're drawing. So I'm actually going to keep my hand here first for detail and for steadiness. And I want you to trace the outside. So you're just redrawing the petal with your paintbrush. And this is kind of a tricky way to describe this, but you want the pigment to go into the water. You don't want it to go outside. So I'm drawing and watch how that pigment bleeds. It's so incredibly beautiful. And there's a method called pressing the pigment in. So you can press the pigment in and it's like little dots and it starts to bleed into the middle. But if you even just go around the side, it'll do that in a more subtle way. But I like to press the pigment in. It's like little dots. Just press it in. Pick up more pigment if you see that you're running out of steam. Press the pigment in as far as you want to go. Sometimes I go up a little bit further, but notice how over time that really beautiful pigment starts to come into the water. All right, I'm going to keep my pigment brush loaded, so I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to put it to the side. We're now going to water the third petal. So go ahead and get your full brush loaded with water and then color it in. So notice how I'm getting in. And this was my grandpa's paper, so I opened one of these one day and it had an oil stain running down the middle, and I'm like, I don't even know where that came from, but luckily I found a good clean sheet. So we're coloring in. Can you see my face? Can you see how close I'm getting? I'm super close. Okay, I'm really getting in here. Okay, the whole petal is colored. Take your pigment. I'm going to get a little bit more water, and I'm going to kind of just collect a little more red. I'm pulling up pigment. And I want you to go, and I want you to start pressing just from where the petal would meet the disc of the flower. Isn't that called I don't know flower anatomy that well. I learned biology in high school, but stamen? I don't know if that's right. Someone can comment and tell me what the middle part of the flower is called. So look, I'm just pressing up from here. That's one technique, and then you can create water, like a water pool, and go back in these lines and add more water. So you're bringing your brush right to the edge of the pigment and pulling water. You're just pulling, you're creating the movement in the watercolor. You're pulling that pigment. That's another cool technique. There's one more that's going to combine these two. So we're going to, again, wet our petal. And I'm explaining this because we're going to come back to our petals here for some of our flower choices. Does anybody know flower anatomy? I know one of them is called the filament, and one, I think the stamen, the disc, the petals, obviously, the leaves, the stem. I want to know what that middle part is. Feel free to comment. And Michael's going to read it out.
Jenna said it's the pistil.
Jenna, yeah. Look at Jenna Worswick. Look at her being an artist and a biologist. Life biology.
She Googled it.
Killing it. She Googled it. Thank you, Jenna. It's something I should have done earlier. Okay, now we're going to go from the disc. So imagine where this like round part of the middle of the flower is. We're going to press pigment from the disc. And then I want you to do the same thing at the top. I know these kind of look like surfboards now that I'm thinking about it, but that's okay. Maybe they are. Side note, I'm actually a pretty good surfer, and I just realized that when Michael and I went to Hawaii. It was really fun. But that's another topic. Okay, so what I'm basically telling you to do is make it abstract. Like if you want pigment at the top, pigment at the bottom, maybe you bring a line up here and do some like pigment at the bottom. You have all the power to move that pigment by putting water at the edge and pulling the water, all right? So do it however you want to do it. But that's another option too. So many ways to lay your pigment, all right? Okay, so let's now having had that exercise, I'm gonna go over one more thing, and it's a fun way to do simple leaves. And you're gonna take your big brush, and I want you to collect a good green. So I already have a green that I've kind of already mixed and used earlier when I was practicing. And I want you to sop up the green. Green, if you don't have it, is just adding a little bit of blue and a little bit of yellow to your choice, whether it's a little bit more of a blue green and a little bit more of a lime green with more yellow. I'm pulling up pigment, and it's important here how you hold your brush. So I'm holding it rather close to the top. I'm not drawing a pencil, but if you feel better, you can try two techniques. Draw a surfboard. Remember, super light pencil, but me, I have to go a little bit darker so y'all can see. Super light surfboard. I want to try the first technique, which doesn't include drawing. You're gonna, with your pointy brush down, press down, widen, and pull up. And that is like the most basic, the easiest pedal. So we're pressing down and pulling. We're going point to width to point. Let me do that one more time. I'm pointing, I'm pressing, like stamping, and then pulling up. Super easy pedal right here. And you can always go back and add more detail like here and coloring it in and everything. But if you're doing like a line, point, lift, point, lift, point, and the lift, that little point that I'm getting is because I'm twisting my brush. So watch this. If I just stamp, I mean, those are interesting pedals too, I'm not gonna lie. But if I just stamp, I don't get that point at the bottom. If you want the point, if you're doing a bunch of petals on a line, which I'm gonna show you, you point, press a little twist, and you'll get that point again, all right? We have a lot to do tonight, so and I wanna make sure that I'm not taking up too much of your Friday night. All right, so let's go back to our piece of paper. And here we're gonna use, and you can go ahead and clean out your brush. And remember, try never to keep your brush in the water. That's how you destroy the Bristol going into the head of the brush. There's an adhesive here, and that can make it kind of erode over time. So try never to leave your brush in the water. All right, take your pencil, and of course I'm gonna have to use my deeper pencil. Take a sip of wine, if you have to. I don't have to, but it's really fun. It's Friday. Okay, sharpen your pencil like me. Y'all, I've had this since art school. I got it in New York. Okay, and I want you to take your pencil, and we're gonna start drawing some of these. So remember, the first one, we're not drawing yet. I'm gonna save this one for a moment. I'm gonna teach you how to draw these two, and then we're gonna start adding pigment. So the first one, we're gonna go to the right quadrant, the top right quadrant, and draw our summer flowers. And I want you to draw a circle on the left middle. I want you to draw a circle. Imagine if these were in quadrants themselves on the top right, and a circle at the bottom right. So draw 3 circles, and then we're gonna do 5 little arms and legs, and I'm gonna show you what I mean. So we're gonna do a set of arms here, a set of arms here, a set of arms here. Wow, I'm literally pressing so hard that my pencil kind of snapped. Just like that, it's like a little turtle going like this. Okay, so 2 arms, 2 legs, and a neck. the neck, the arms, and the two legs. Try to make them pretty equidistant. The neck, the arms of our cute little turtle, and they're parallel. I did make that a V accidentally, but they are parallel. All right. So we have that drawn. What these signify here are the base of the petal. So that's helping you space out your flower better. So watch this. I'm going to take my brush and go wide on both sides and tall at the top. The little arms in between are the base of where the petal goes out and comes to the top. It's helping you be a little more balanced with your, but these are fun, stress-free flowers, so if the petals aren't perfect, that's okay. And I also thought, I was thinking this would be such a cute Mother's Day gift, or like a gift to your aunt, or grandma who's also a mother. So think about maybe saving some of these, cutting them up and sending them out. So what it did is it just helped you place your petals. I think a lot of the times, at first when I started doing art, when I was a little girl, I had a hard time fitting in all my petals in the right way. So let's try that again. And if you overlap, let it be fun. It's like a blooming scene of flowers. So I'm going to go wide and then go top. Remember, I'm kind of doing this shape right here. Start wide, point, wide, but not a perfect point unless you wanted a perfect point. And look, if I run out, it's fine. It's kind of blooming into the side. Here, 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 here. So I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this space. It's not perfect. They're fun. They're kind of, maybe they're blowing in the wind. And then the fun part is layering. So imagine if this petal was coming actually out behind this, you would see that bend, and you can even like dotted line it, but I'm gonna erase that because I'm gonna add pigment to that. And I have my wonderful architecture brush. Let's do our last petal. All right, keep it going. So I'm like really free. I know this is paint and pour, so feel as free as you want. So we have 3 here. Let's move to the bottom left quadrant, and I want you to draw lines. Focus on lines. That was my maul stick. I want you to draw a line coming out like this. I want you to draw a line coming out like this. A line like this. A line like this. And a line like that. So imagine like equidistant lines, but every other one is shorter or longer. So I'll give you time to do that while I resharpen my pencil. Old school. All right, these ones are my spring flowers. So these were my summer flowers. These are my spring flowers, and I've used these in a project before, and they're really fun. They kind of remind me of like a, I don't know, like a folky printmaking. I don't know. They're just really, they remind me, I don't know if this is the right word, but they kind of remind me of like indie flowers. I don't know what that means, but that's what's in my head. So what we're drawing for the first 2 leaves of each of these flowers are skewed hearts. And let me show you. You're going to do a big line here, a small thing there. It's like a heart, but it's almost as if you cut it in half, like you're looking at the side of a heart balloon swaying. So again, I'm going to keep that petal, do that again for every one of these. Go out to the side, draw big, cut small. Draw out to the side, draw big, cut small. Out to the side, draw big, cut small. Out to the side, draw big, cut small. So you have the left petal. Now let's do the right. It's almost the same thing. Come from about the middle part of this right side of the petal. Draw small, come big. Draw small. It's okay if you miss the corner. Draw small, come big. Super, super freeing. These are fun, artsy, kind of messy, not perfect or imperfect flowers. All right, you have the 2 left and right corners. And then I want you to go from this kind of small mountain crest from that first leaf we did, start a line here and just do another mountain. I went a little too far on that right side. That's why you don't want to draw hard in case you ever have to erase. Kind of cut it in so it has more of like a bowl feeling here. So we're going from the top crest, the bottom crest of this left petal to about the top of the other one. Just like that, just a little mountain. And then I want you to do one more mountain coming from the left side of this new one we just drew. Just like that. And y'all, I'm saving these to my YouTube. I know, I can't believe I'm on YouTube, it's so much fun. So you'll be able to see these again. Now, remember those leaves, right? Super light pencil, because if you want to use this technique, you don't really need the pencil mark because you're just using your brush to make the leaves. What I'm going to do is we're going to do opposing leaves. So they're not next to one another. It just creates a really cute composition because there's a lot of negative space that's being filled. You're welcome to do 2 leaves like this if you want to do that. And I'm just making little surfboards. This is like such a fun Mother's Day gift. I just thought about that. All right, just like that. We're letting it stay. The next one, the bottom right, I want you to do 3 almost rainbows like that. And you're just gonna keep those there. Let's start to paint. And then if you have your pen and ink, we're gonna add the filaments and they're gonna come from the disc. And then we can add detail with the pen, which is why I like pen and ink. All right. And I'm not gonna finish these entire compositions, y'all, because I want you just to get the idea of what I'm doing. So I'm just gonna do 1 flower per segment, and then I'll have this video saved and you can go back and use that same technique per flower, all right? So I'm gonna take my brush. This one is kind of the fun one, which is why I don't want any pencil at first, because look how messy it is. It's like curated mess. Balanced mess. So we're gonna take our brush, and what I want you to do, actually I have a good idea. I'm gonna show you what you're gonna do with your water in a dark color so that you can see how free you have to be. So pretend that this is water, okay? This is how you're gonna move your brush on the paper. And I want you to imagine not only a circle shape, but watch this. So I want you to do something like this with your water, all right? Pretend this is clear water, and I want you to get messy. Do some, stems coming out. Imagine that these are petals, and then you're gonna leave it like that. This isn't pigment, this is water. So I'm doing that with my water right now. Clean brush, and I'm kind of getting really messy. Just right in the middle, like a messy, those mop dogs? They look like they're mops. Something like that. Just like a lion's mane, just kind of crazy. All right, super crazy. While that's wet, come back to a pigment of your choice. I'm gonna come back to that really pretty red that I got. So we still have time. I wanted to use cold press tonight, so there wasn't any added pressure. So I'm gonna come back to that really cute red, and I want you to get your brush wet, and from the bottom, just start adding in color. I'm talking mess, y'all. I'm talking real mess. Like, adding in color. Maybe you decide that you do want to save space in the middle for that disc that we're gonna put, but like really messy. Like maybe you add some fun splashes or something. Like I'm just pointing my brush down. How perfect is that? 1 dot went into every petal. That's really awesome. If you don't like that, pick it up real quick with a clean brush, and you're just gonna wipe it away. Cold press is awesome. It gives you a little bit more time. All right, so you can just pick that pigment up right there. Fix your mess. Just like that. And that'll dry because it's just a little bit of water. All right, so that's our messy one. Take a yellow. Mix a nice one. I'm using kind of a golden yellow. It's from Winsor Newton. I'm gonna put a little ochre in it so it's not quite so yellowy, and I want you to pick up the pigment. So you're wetting your brush, picking up pigment, mush it all around, and I want you to drop that yellow right in the middle. Just drop it like we did on the edges of those petals. And it's gonna start to bleed into this water. If you want a little bit of brown, you can. If you have brown on this palette, you can put it at the bottom, because that's kind of where our darker part of our petal is. Maybe a little bit at the top. All right. Let's create some leaves. So bring a green onto your brush. So I'm gonna let you get caught up. I know this is a lot. Remember, what I did was I wet the whole thing like a crate. This is what my water looks like on my paper, this big blue blob. Just put in a few areas of color. Let it bleed with a lot of water. Save the middle, and then drop in some yellow, and it's gonna push its way out. And this is really beautiful. This brown is already kind of like an estuary. It's already kind of gliding back into the other water source. If you wanted to flick your brush, it was just like this. If you have another technique, some people just hit their brush with their finger. All right, let's do some petals. I'm gonna do some bright green, and I'm gonna actually add a little bit of yellow. I take that back. I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow. All right, now remember that technique. To make them small, you get the top, press, lift, top, press, lift, top, press, lift. You have to create a little twist clockwise. All right, I'm gonna put one over here. Top, press, lift. I'm gonna put another one up here. Top, press, lift. I'm gonna put another one next to that. Top, press, lift. And another one next to this one. Top, press, lift. If you wanna do one more, maybe like a super small one, you can. That's kind of cute. And maybe like another super small one here. All right, cute. I love this. All right, we have 2 more flowers to show. This technique is this has to dry. So let's move to our summer flowers. I'm gonna show you that technique where we fill in the color from the edges, because I think that one's really fun. But remember, you can pounce in color, or press in color, from the bottom. Maybe press in color from the bottom and the top, or maybe just color the whole thing in. But I'm gonna show you the kind of mixed technique since it's a little bit more detailed. Color in one petal, in that same way you have to kind of look, try not to get the yellow part wet, or the circle part wet, because we're gonna put a yellow on that. And if you get it wet and you put red on here, or pink, or whatever your colors, it's gonna move into that space, and you can't, when you put a dark down, you can't put a light on top of it in watercolor. It's not like acrylic, it messes up your light. So let's take our red, we've wet the petal, and I want you to just put in color. I mean, look at that. It's just already happening. It's so fun. Put in color on the edges. I'm just pressing in color on the edges. Just like that. Save it. Let's do another petal. My brush is in my mouth. This happens a lot. Make sure you don't have paint on it. We don't want to ingest any paint. I mean, I'm like barely pressing down, and this paint is just escaping into the red. So we're doing a lot of wet on wet tonight. If you just want to go ahead and paint the next one, you can just color it in. But if you are trying to save these for like a final piece, then you might want to make them all look the same, but it's really up to you. All right, so those are the examples. When you have your time, go ahead and fill in the rest of your petals, but keep in mind, and this is kind of the fun part, let's say I decide to do I'm just literally picking up a random color in my palette, and I don't know, it's paint gray. Let's say I decide to do a purple flower. And I'm gonna color in this petal of the flower that's on top of the flower behind it, right? I'm doing the same technique, and I'm pressing in this really beautiful navy gray. The flower underneath, you have to just imagine that you're continuing the paint. And let me tell you what I mean. So I'm gonna pick up a totally different color. I'm picking up an orange. Same thing. When you're putting 2 wets next to one another and you don't want them to cross and bleed, you have to keep the thinnest, smallest white line border between them that's ever humanly possible. Because once that one color touches water, it's gonna move into that space. Woo! So, I'm getting really close, and I'm making sure that my wet area doesn't touch my other wet area, because I don't want to make a yellow and an orange and a blue, because it's going to turn brown, and I want fun summer colors. So look how close and detailed I'm getting. I mean, y'all can probably see my ear. Then you'll press in your color. And if I did a good job, it's not going to touch the blue. There you go. Feel free to mix that color. If you want to see what happens, okay, I'm doing this for you guys. I'm messing up my artwork. There we go. So you can already see that blue is starting to make its way into the orange when your borders connect. All right, these ones are kind of fun. I just wanted to color these in tonight. And so go ahead and I'm using the same red, but we're just coloring these in. So color, and be free with it. Like, it's okay if it gets messy. just color one in, like super messy, like look at my hand. I'm just coloring it in, no technique, no watering, no anything. These don't all have to be the same colors, but I'm making them, 2 of them pink. Okay, we're gonna keep just 2 pink. And I want you to come back to your green, your special green that you're using tonight. Okay, that was like a brown green. I don't know what I just did there. I just got a little too confident. Okay, so make your special green. And then with the finest edge of the pointiest part of your brush, you're going to create a stem. Again, try not to have the green touch the red when it's wet. So hold it super high at the top. Trust yourself. It's okay if you shake. And draw a line. You have to be super light, almost like you're about to drop the brush. Draw a line. Like I'm barely holding onto my brush. And then here's where you can use that technique. Press to point, point, press, point, point, press, point. Creating leaves. You create the rest of this. Last but not least, I want to go over my greens with y'all. So these are like really fun greens. And these are just palm fronds, but I'm making them a little more organic and I'm adding kind of a dark green. So I want you to create a stem. So in that same way, you're taking your paintbrush all the way at the top and you're drawing a thin line. If you give up control here, you'll create an even thinner line. Try not to press at all, just the weight of the brush on the paper. All right, keep your green. We're doing the point, press, point technique. Point, press, point. Do that for all 3. Point, press, point, point, press, point. Water your brush because you're going to carry the same movement. And when you see a palm frond, they all move according to the spine, okay? So they're not all going to be straight. They're going to move according to the spine. So I'm going to start mine down a little bit. Point, press, point, point. Do a little twist to get that point. And I sometimes let mine get a little wiggly because it shows that there's life and that every petal is unique, kind of like each of our fingerprints. So look, now when you're creating the opposite side, these are a V, so they move together. So if this one is moving with the spine, the other one has to move with it as well. So they kind of move like a V. So I get, like how I'm holding my brush, I lean into the other side, point, press, point, point, press, point. Look how dry that is. Obviously I need a little bit more water. Point, press, point, point, press, point. You want them to be as long as their sibling on the other side. Point, press, point. And this is just kind of a fun one. You can make them a little more rhythmic. So point, press, point. Do you see how I'm rolling my brush? And I'm totally cool with letting these blend into one another because this is my greens palette and I love green. And I'm running out of pigment on my brush, but I just want to show you that you can make these as free and fun and see how fun that is. Okay, last but not least, here's the ink part. And I wish that this was dry, but I'm just going to show you this right here. So with your messy watercolor, and this isn't going to dry in time, I want you to create petals. So let's imagine that this is my wet, messy watercolor, my messy, what is this called? A flower, okay? So I'm gonna move this really quickly. And you've imagined that you've saved room for your yellow, for the stem, or for the disc of your flower. Go ahead and do very few circular dots, and you're gonna make little triangles. These are really exaggerated, but this is the shape that we're making. Go ahead and make little triangles. Keep them concentrated at the bottom and fewer at the top to emphasize shadow and shade. And I'm kind of just going crazy with them. I mean, they're not perfect. Imagine that these are the little, Jenna Warswick knows the biology of this flower. But so I'm just kind of letting them go crazy. Okay, now this is really where you can get free. So what I did here in this flower was I imagined that the flower was kind of moving into the sun. So the petals at the top are a little shorter to show a little bit of perspective, and then they start to droop down and get longer. If you want a happier flower, not that this one isn't happy, but if you want a happier flower, then you can let them all kind of just stick out. So I'm gonna draw short and imperfect surfboards at the top, and as I move down the flower, they get a little longer. Look, I'm gonna not move my pin off the brush. So really long, imperfect. Maybe you skip a space just to make sure that you have them exactly where you want. So I'm not having them point and finish at the disc. I'm having them stay open because I'm imagining that the disc is kind of spilling out. So same thing here. Really long, kind of droopy. These kind of look like dog ears or like basset hound ears. Short at the top. Just really free, really free. Let this be stress relieving. All right, so there's a droopy flower. Look at that. What I love about these is that I didn't even stick in the pigment all the way. That's like this one. Some of the pigment moves beyond the actual petals, and then some of the petals have no pigment in them at all. That's what I love about it, but you can decide. This one here, that's kind of what I did here too. And then when you get to your petals, you're just going to outline them in black. So again, they don't have to be perfect. So imagine that these are the petals that go with that flower. All right. Then the last and final detail is that I drew little lines coming out from the top of the petal where the disc is. So just like that, like 3 lines, chop, chop, chop. And if you want to carry some through, go to the bottom. Like I'm just like sketching here. Be free, free yourself. Don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is a messy flower on purpose. And what's great about these messy flowers is that it carries the emotion and the movement that you made them in. So let them be really lively. Like there's a lot of action in here, a lot of motion. Love that flower. All right. So tonight we covered petals, we covered simple leaves, we covered like, if you just are so sick of all this detail, super messy flowers. We covered coloring and layering. And this is still wet, but that's because this is Arches and it's really good paper. And then we covered some really pretty palm fronds. Now, this video is going to save to my YouTube, and I just want to know if y'all have any questions. Oh, this is my flower top, by the way. Isn't it cute? Does anybody have any questions? I know that was a lot, and I think I covered everything. I did. No questions? And look, if y'all do have questions and you do this at home and you want more information, just DM me and I can help you out more personally. But thank y'all so much for tuning into Haley from Home. I would love to see what y'all do as always if you've been doing these. So you can just tag me or hashtag Haley from Home, and I'd love to shout you out and repost you and keep this community growing. So one question, is it Hilty? Is it my twin? Okay, because she's been asking a lot of
Kat Flynn says, what is your favorite flower?
Oh, Kat, I love you. Thank you. So I love sunflowers, but my favorite flower I think is a gardenia because I just love the smell. And my grandmother Momo, that's her favorite scent. So I love a gardenia, but sunflowers are like me.
El Sierra 75 says, what brand of watercolors do you use?
Good question. So right now I'm using Winsor Newton Cotman. When I'm not using Winsor Newton, I use Tube Daniel Smith, and those are like my favorite. But Winsor Newton is the best compact set, and I'm saying that wholeheartedly and fully because I know my friend Haley Coates just bought one, my friend Cashel has one now, and it's like you keep it with you and you carry it and you can take it on an airplane. It's like the best thing ever. So I use Daniel Smith tubes if I'm doing like this stuff. And then I use Winsor Newton compact set. Any other questions?
Cashel asks, what about painting plants that are touching, like a forest of trees?
Oh, that's a great question. Let's we can do a tutorial of that. But basically what I'm imagining you're asking is about layering. So typically what's coming in front of you is more saturated. It's darker. So you're adding more pigment, less water. What's coming behind you is lighter. Think of mountain ranges. The first mountains are dark green, and the furthest mountains are like a baby blue, maybe even transparent. So, or not transparent, but light enough. So the first greens, what you would do is I would start with the background, into the background in a soft green, and then add on the layers, adding more color. Also, keep in mind if you're doing like a bunch of leaves and a stem over here, notice and think about what needs to dry first before you add more pigment. If you can still see that the paper is glossy because of water and you need it to be dry, let it dry. Otherwise, colors are going to bleed into one another. That's a good question. Anything else? Awesome. Y'all, thank you so much. This is so much fun. I miss you guys. I hope that you're healthy and well and safe while we stay home. And stay tuned for my next demo. I'll see you guys soon.